What's up?
Yo,
What's up?
what's up? Uh, that was the first time I actually. Well, that's not the first time because I won't be disrespectful, but that was. It's been a while since I've listened to the lyrics of the song, our opening song for our podcast, and
Yeah,
it said, "What was it? You better to stand and be on your knees."
yeah.
That's wicked stuff. That's
Things
actually
get dangerous down there on your knees.
That's dangerous. Like what's the lyric again exactly? Um
I'd have
it's
to go
better to
back and look
stand and be on your knees. Man, that's some fire right there.
at it.
That's some fire right there. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for we're live streaming. This is a live stream of the Cultured podcast. I'm Ken Jerome Floyd, joined by my illustrious co-host Jay
Jay
Barnes.
Barnes.
Yeah, see, we're trying something new. I'm trying to see which angle of the camera I need to be on to actually make sure everything I'm not half facing it. Um we are joined by Miss Danea. I got that correctly, right?
Yep.
Danea Lyons is joining us today on this unprecedented episode, a first episode we've had in a while. Thank you so much for having us. How you been? Or
I'm good.
thanks so much
Or
for joining us. How you been?
I'm good. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Wonderful. It's been a while, so it's good to be back in the saddles and talking about some black cinema.
Yeah, so if you're following us or if you're joining us and you haven't already, you can follow us on all social media at Cultured Podcast. We're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. And for those of you that like stand up comedy, I will actually be in Washington, D.C. April 10th, 12th, and 14th for the DC Comedy Festival, as well as headlining the Elbow Room in West Hartford, Connecticut, January 8th. There's going to be two shows, one at 7 and one at 9 o'clock, I believe. By the time the quote unquote edited version of this podcast goes up April 1st, the ticket link will be up for those shows in West Hartford, Connecticut. So I'll make sure I give a reminder at the end of the show. But yeah, so that's what's going on. We're going to be talking about the Oscar award winning film American Fiction. Now, American Fiction means a lot to me personally because when everyone went to see the movie, for some reason, I got a text message encouraging me that I should go see the movie because apparently the movie's about me. Now, not only
I
not
do
only
see a slight similarity.
not only because I look like Jeffrey Wright, but also that the complaints that the movie makes are the same complaints that I've been making for years about my career and being a black person in entertainment. So I caught an early screening of it before it like went wide. When did you guys see the movie?
I feel like I saw it twice or three times, maybe. My mom was here last week, so I watched it with her again. And then maybe a month or two ago.
Did you see it in theaters or was it okay, yeah. It
I did
wasn't
not make that happen.
it was only in theaters. I think it was only in theaters for like a month at the end of last year.
Oh no, I definitely watched it like at home. But
At
I
home.
watched it, yeah. I watched it a couple of weeks ago with my husband, then I watched it again a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it was I saw one of those early screenings at AMC. My audience was mostly white. Um they, they
How was
enjoyed
that
it.
experience?
Well, so I think that American Fiction is a lot like Get Out. Like in the sense that it's a very black movie but done at a high concept level that what the real movie's really about I think goes over everybody's heads. You feel me? Like
What was the crux of it for you? Because everybody had these major takeaways, and you know, I know Danea was like, "Hey, this is a movie I saw. I'm trying to speak my piece." Like, what was your your underlying theme or core theme that really stood out for you?
I think I want to hear Danea's point of view first, and then yours, Jade, and then I will give mine.
All right.
So I felt like there was two things going on. Like I feel like you had the story arc of what was going on in his life, his mom's relationship, that aspect, and then you had this career what was happening in the career at the same time. And one of the main narratives I think it talks about is, like you said, being Black in the entertainment industry is what, if you're an actor, what type of roles do you want to be cast for, or do you want to be called to come in for? Do you want things that kind of perpetuate the stereotype, or do you want to do a character that just happens to be Black? Like it's just a normal story in everyday life, and the person happens to be Black, and trying to juggle the balance of that, and then understandably being annoyed by it. And I think I often hear that a lot of times in the industry of, and again, myself, the same thing of not wanting to be put in a box of this is the only type of roles that I can play or get or be. And then understanding when you do participate in certain type of roles, what does that say to the outside world? Like, who are we catering to? So I feel like you had that narrative of his character going through that and getting frustrated by it. And I also think getting overwhelmed by his personal life, and then how he was executing at times, how he felt about what was going on. So I feel like you saw this like chaoticness that was happening in his life that was overwhelming him. His patience was thin. He then just started just doing stuff. I'm just out here doing stuff. And then kept getting further reeled into this narrative in this story. I will say I liked the conversation that it opens up. However, I feel like what I thought the story was about was subtly underneath. And it was kind of like focusing on what was going on in his life, and then let's pop back to the book. Focusing on what's going on in his life, let's pop back. And I'm like, I want to know more. Like, I want to see him more of why he's going down this, and he's basically unraveling and wanting to blow everything up. Like, that's what I wanted to see and feel that I feel like I didn't get as much of.
Okay, we're going to circle back to that very last line and not getting as much as you wanted. Like for me, I saw it as this kind of this who's controlling the narrative whole dynamic, and what that narrative is when it comes to what's popular in mainstream media, in this instance a book, and like what's being published, what's being put out there to consume by the public to tell a story about Black folks. And I just saw a lot of the satire with it in terms of like what white folks were getting super excited about versus like what's good writing, and then do we just put good content out there, and if they read it, they read it, or are we selling stuff that's going to be what did they say? It's Juneteenth coming up. Everybody's going to be, the Black folks will be celebrating, and then the white folks will be dealing with their white guilt. So they'll definitely sell and have this stuff kind of come off the shelves. And I saw that storyline, and I thought the cinematic approach was to have his storyline with his family, the heartbreak, the death, those type of underlying issues that gave it color. But other than that, like I just really focused, the main takeaway for me was really like what's being put out there, and specifically a lot of garbage and trash, and then how it's being consumed and how people try to make money off of it. Like he's been writing well for years, decades, and then comes up with this garbage as a joke. All of a sudden, $750 out the gate for a book deal. Let's do a $4 million movie. Like we want a real, raw, authentic, that type of crap. So I thought that was the core of it. I don't know, Keenan, what's your takeaway?
I agree with both of what you guys said. I think my takeaway was other people defining what Blackness is.
Yeah.
Because essentially what happened in the movie and also what's happening now is that our quote unquote culture is being um, confiscated or appropriated and being sold back to us, right? But it's also going through like a filter to see what's going to make money. Now, in the case of Monk, Jeffrey Wright's character, he also was kind of a snob. So the question is, were his books boring? You know what I mean? Like there needs to be like a balance of look, there can be great representation, but also are these movies and are these books interesting?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes creators they kind of get on this snob level where even Monk was kind of like, I'm not like those other niggas. You know what I mean? Like in the beginning of the movie, he was doing this whole dissertation about race in the university, and then when we start getting into the conversation about the books that he was writing, he says, "Well, I don't even believe in race and all that stuff." So it's like he was black, but then at the same time he was also kind of a snob. And plus, his family lived on like Martha's Vineyard too. So like,
Super elite family.
so, so
All of them were doctors.
Yep.
it's a whole. But when you know about black people in Martha's Vineyard and all that stuff, it's a whole theme where he's like, man, I'm frustrated because people don't see me for who I am, a smart man. But at the same time, too, I don't want to be lumped in with all these other ignorant black people. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's the two sides of the same coin where it's like I understand his frustration, but at the same time, too, he also brings his own frustration on, and then it gives to the drama that he has with his family
Yeah.
and the drama he has with his friends and his love interests and all that stuff, because there's this level that he sees himself at and everyone else is beneath him.
Yeah.
So
A tad bit pretentious.
he's pretentious. That's right.
Yeah.
He's exactly, I've gotten this far, therefore I am.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I also want black people to be represented better, right?
Yeah.
So I think the question that the movie presents at the beginning is, well, what does that look like exactly? Is Monk correct in his assumption? And then the question that comes up for me is, well, then what's the definition of blackness then?
You can't define it. You can't define it because it's not monolithic. And that's where we'll forever kind of have this tension. In and outside of the culture, we're always going to have this tension because everybody's lens presents their version of blackness, and there's certain things based on their upbringing and environment that rank higher on the black level than other people. My family is kind of country. We play spades, we get together, we eat barbecue, crabs, and we spend every holiday together. If you don't play spades when you're at these events, or can't cook, or try to cook some stuff that ain't on the menu that you're supposed to cook, then like your level of blackness may fluctuate. Other people don't have that same hierarchy of needs when it comes to the black family or what black culture represents. So like it's going to look differently in everyone's eyes, and we've got to be okay with that at some point. And it can come in 50 shades of blackness and different perspectives, and one's not diminished because the other exists. It almost makes me think of like when we say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't take away from white lives or Asian lives or any other lives. All lives do matter, but in perspective, we're talking about specific groups or populations. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Danea?
Yeah. I definitely agree with that because I think that was a part of what Issa Rae's character was saying towards the end, where she's like, I did research, and I don't necessarily have to say my experience, but I'm shedding light to other people's experience that I talk to and that I'm putting out there because they have a voice too. And I think that's always the balance of, while we're trying to protect and curate the Black image that we are displaying to the world, do we then even ostracize people inside the Black community by not allowing their versions of their experiences to be shown? And it's the balance, like, okay, at the end of the day, who is spending the money to help produce the content? And they're looking for certain stuff, but then you also have a variety of Black people who have a variety of experiences, and it's not fair to say, well, your stories don't deserve to be on screen because it's not a curated version of who Black people are.
So who wins in that situation though? Like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, we got content creators, and then we have publishers and distribution companies that can actually produce it and get it to the masses. And then you actually have the audience and the people. And those three things or goals or visions don't always align in my eyes. You know, and I think we saw that here.
Well, back to your point, Jade, about like Black Lives Matter. There's even like a subgenre of Black Lives Matter that's going on where people are asking, well, do all Black Lives Matter? Because now remember, now you have people saying all Black Lives Matter within the group of Black Lives Matter, because that's how I'm not saying that to be like difficult. I'm saying
right.
Once you get into the subculture of what Black Lives Matter is, there are people that mentally have, well, it's this group of Black people. And in another group, it's like, well, then it's this group of Black people. And not all Black Lives Matter until all Black Lives, you know what I mean? So the reason
it starts to get weird at that point.
Yeah, it really comes down to, and everyone and everybody thinks that they're the representation of Blackness. However, some people do want to be the quintessential representation of Blackness, right? So Issa Rae's character in the show, in the movie, I almost felt like Issa Rae was like playing herself in a sense, because where Issa Rae came from, she went to Stanford. Her parents are African. She's from Southern California. She runs her own business and all that stuff. And she did Insecure, which was kind of like a great representation of professional young Black people.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't a lot of, maybe there was a couple characters from South LA that were like really from South LA on the show. But for the most part, it was young adults, professionals that were in tech that you know, kind of like us a little bit, right?
Yeah, it 100% reminded of my group of friends. Like,
yeah,
we were young, we were, you know, entrepreneurs, we're hustling, trying to figure it out. But like, I didn't know whether my view was based because I'm here in LA. Like, when I was in Ohio or Delaware, would I have connected or related the same way? I think the numbers and ratings say yes, but I haven't lived that experience while that show was on.
Well, I mean, but then at the same time too, after Insecure was done, Issa came out with Rap Shit.
Yeah.
Which is like the polar opposite of Insecure. And the thing is, her fans, like, I saw Danea's face when I said Rap Shit. Her fans were like, really? Like,
well, I was gonna say, you look at the trajectory of Rap Shit versus Insecure. Insecure went the distance in terms of like seasons and, you know, going to, I guess what you would call a successful show and having a certain amount of seasons. And then you have Rap Shit that has a different path than that. And was it because the support behind the show was not there, or was it because the audience and the viewership was not there? Because I think when looking at Insecure, I know a lot of Black friends, again, in my echo chamber, we all watched the show. But did that cross to the white audience? Whereas maybe Rap Shit did not. Where I think that makes it hard. It makes it complicated because it didn't translate over as, I think, as much viewership as Insecure did versus Rap Shit? And is that the same type of thing of who wants to see what and who is the audience that we are sending it to? Why does Hit Monk's book fail? And like you said, is it just because he was just a bad writer and it was boring and people didn't relate? Or was it because we want to push this because we want to sell, so therefore we're going to put the marketing behind it? And if a show will be successful if someone likes it enough to put the money behind it to campaign and market it. And that could be something that is a more relatable or more stereotypical. It just depends on what narrative they're selling and how interested they are in it. It may not even necessarily be us as the viewer, because we could have decent viewership, but if the marketing dollars are not there, then people are not going to see it.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, I kind of like forgot my thought, but this is what I was going to say. I think, like, my frustration personally, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I've seen people echo what I'm saying. It seems like that there is a push for one type of Black entertainment that seems to be successful, right? So the question really becomes, is the money there because that's what's available? Or is the money there because that's what we want to see, right? Like, even if we talk about the movie American Fiction itself, before it even got nominated for an Oscar, not many people had seen the movie. And I remember I was on the live, you're on the live, I was on the Instagram live, and I was like, have you guys seen American Fiction? And they're like, ugh. Like, it was me and someone. They're like, ugh, that sounds white. What type of stupid movie is that? I said, well, it stars Jeffrey Wright. It stars Tracy Ellis Ross. It stars Erica Alexander. And they were like, that sounds like a bunch of white folks. And I mean, you mean Tracy Ellis Ross, the daughter of Diana Ross?
Right.
So, and I'm not saying that represents everybody, but my particular friend group was just not familiar with the movie and just didn't really know the actors by name, right?
Yeah.
Which is also because Sterling K. Brown is in it too. And I feel like
This Is Us, Erica Alexander, Max from Living Single, like, Issa, you've got Leslie Uggams, who is a giant when it comes to like early acting. You know what I mean? Tracy Ellis Ross, your boy Keith David, like, there were some names in here. Like, we had this good ensemble cast, and personally, I thought it was extremely well written, quite entertaining. I thought it was extremely comedic. Like, it was funny to me. Like, I laughed multiple times. It's the type of humor that I enjoy. It's a little witty. It's a little subtle. It's not like here's the punchline, but like just these subtle jabs, these little nuances, and the outbursts actually were quite entertaining too. Even opening scene, like when they're in the classroom and niggas on the word niggas on the board, and the white girl flips out like, I'm uncomfortable. Well, I would hope that if once I got comfortable with it, you would too, or something like that. And then she storms out, and then she's like, then he just like blows up. Like, I like stuff like that. It's just like, it's a little edgy, it's a little wild, but like, why are you that pissed off or offended by the word nigga when, like, we've clearly come to some level of grips and balance with this. When in an educational setting, understanding the text, it's appropriate. You singing your favorite rap song, maybe not. You know what I mean? But like, figuring out when is appropriate to use the word nigga. Even reading it, like, why are your panties in such a bunch?
Well, how can you talk about history and read books and understand literature if we are omitting everything that has that word in it? I can't even write the book title on the wall because.
Have you talked to anybody in Texas about that?
Oh.
The opening scene of the movie was very accurate. If you've lived in, because I don't know if anyone has lived in New York, especially in the last 10 years, and hung out with white liberals that have been kicking old Black families out of their homes in Brooklyn because of gentrification, but they want to preach to us about racism. It's a very, all right. this is what makes American fiction great. American fiction is great because it's the portrayal of a well-spoken, quote-unquote, educated Black person whose affluence and access puts him around a lot of influential white people, which means most of his existence is living through frustration because he's always having to explain himself. He's always having to be the representative for the culture. And he's also has to be the one to combat the misconceptions that these people have of Black culture, right? So a lot of times what will happen is you might be, because this has happened to me, if you are well spoken in Black, it almost feels like that even some white liberals don't view you as really Black. Not in they say you're not Black enough, because they would never say that.
He with us. Huh? He with us. Oh, you're one of the good ones.
Yeah, they would never, but in their actions, they kind of dismiss your viewpoint of your experience because you aren't downtrodden and you're not because when they look at like Black people in America, they try to look at us like we're refugees, basically. Yeah. So it's like if you ain't like out there and with your own, with the boot on your neck and all that stuff, then you're a privileged Black person or whatever it is that you wanted. So you're like one of us, right? You grew, you one of us. So the opening scene is kind of sets up Monk well in the sense that he has guts, he has teeth when he's in a white space.
Yeah.
So now he's in the white space and he's like taunting his Black students with this word. I mean, he also knows what he's doing too. He's not innocently like, hey guys, today we're going to talk about nigga. No, right. He's like, he knows that people are going to get upset at the fact that he's presenting it in school. And then he has to deal, you can see in this conversation that he has with the dean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where he wanted the outrage.
Go ahead.
I say he wanted that outrage. He wanted to trigger conversation and a little discomfort and make it awkward. So like, figure it out. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And
but isn't that the part of the biggest piece of what art is supposed to do, whether it's literature, whether it's movies, is it's supposed to present the uncomfortable so that people can sit in it. And like you said, the doing it in this like very well satire comedic timing way, I think was done good, because you had these awkward moments that you're sitting here like, oh, like you recognize the moment, you related to the moment, and it was hilarious because of how you saw how this white person reacted, how the publisher reacted to when he first came on the call, and like he sounded a little proper, and then as soon as he switched up his voice, like, oh, okay, okay, that's right.
Oh yeah, there's the guy I know.
Right. This is what I expected to be.
Well, here's what's gangster about the opening scene, right? And then I just want to pull this because I read the script. So Brittany says, it's not funny. We shouldn't have to stare at the N-word all day, right? Then Monk goes, listen, this is a class of the literature of the American South. You're going to encounter some archaic thoughts, coarse language, but we're all adults here, and I think we can understand it in the context in which it's used, right? So they're probably talking about Mark Twain at this point.
Yeah.
Brittany says, well, I just find the word really offensive. And then he says, with all due respect, Brittany, I got over it. I'm pretty sure you can too, which I've said before. I've said that before to white liberals. And this isn't an attack on white people. This is not an attack on white liberals. I'm just saying in the context of the movie and in the context of the show and in context in certain spaces, like when you're in New York, like the opening scene takes place at Columbia University, or you're in some parts of Los Angeles or whatever, Austin, Texas or whatever. It's this frustration that's like, me talking about my experience is uncomfortable to you, and your feelings is the only thing that matters, right? So then when he goes into
say that again. Please.
Yeah.
That deserves a rewind.
My experience is uncomfortable to you. I forget exactly how I say it, but you think that you can silence my experience because it makes you uncomfortable. That's why. Who's that old white lady that talks about racism?
Oh,
Is it Dr. Elliot?
I can't remember what her name is.
I know exactly.
But I just saw another video of her.
Yeah,
She does
Dr. Elliot
the racial experiments.
Racial experience. Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott's her name. It's exactly like the Jane Elliott experience, where she goes into a room and the classroom is maybe 50-50, maybe 60-40 or whatever, right? And immediately the white kids start crying and all that stuff. And she's like, I don't know why this makes you uncomfortable, because as soon as you leave this classroom, you're white. Like you get to still enjoy life.
Like you can turn this off. This is a short phase. Like other people have to experience this. This is a lived experience that, like your example, like you actually had to live it, not just hear about it and discuss it. Like it's two different things on polar ends of the spectrum. And like, I think that's the thing that just goes crazy to me. It's just like, how can your emotions be that strong in rage or outrage or discomfort about the conversation about what happened, not even what's actually happened?
Do you guys think that Black people are amazing at reading body language?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
I think we're the best. I think we are the best at it, because we could be like, look, I know you feel X, Y, and Z about me. And then they go, I didn't say that. You didn't have to.
Yeah.
Well, it's a learned skill, and it is from a therapy session conversation. It's a trauma response. When you have to walk on eggshells around other people, you have to learn how to read people, because you have to know when the mood shift, when the vibe change, when someone's hand flinches. You have to know what that means. And as Black people, because we are constantly in environments in which we are not protected and safe, we have always had to be aware of not even just how our actions affect other people, but other actions to each other. What is their language saying between them? And am I okay in this room?
Yeah.
When I
that nonverbal communication,
it's huge.
Well, and that was the interesting part about Monk's character in the movie too, because that happens to a lot of Black people that work in corporate America, work in academics, or work in entertainment or whatever, right? Like you never hear about it as it's happening because of the passive aggressiveness, and they're scared to actually say something. Because, okay, so the thing about people like Monk, maybe like us, I'm projecting a little bit, is that people don't know how to read us, which is why I think there's more of a, when it comes to like entertainment, there's more of a push to more outlandish representation of Black culture. Like you have the guy that dances with chicken on Instagram that has like 1 million followers. Yeah. You know, the guy, the shark, the Nigerian dude that eats stuff and dances, because we know him. We know everything about him. He likes to dance and he likes to go to the gym. We know everything about him. Sexy Red, we know everything about her. She says everything that she wants to say about how nasty she is and all that stuff. We know, there's no.
I wish I did.
Yes, but
just want to go on record with that.
She's one of those people that were like, wait a minute, did anyone ask you about that? It's like, no, she just randomly said. There's no mystery. There's no mystery about them. The reason that people were shocked that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock is because no one knew Will was angry. Like nobody knew he was angry.
They
didn't read the book
for decades, and they saw like, oh, this is who Will Smith is. Like you said, they did not read his book. Yeah. People were half not paying attention to Red Table Talk. They didn't see the writing on the wall. And so when he acted out of pocket for them, then they were like, oh no. What
Yeah,
is
what's
doing
going on
wrong?
here? Wait a minute.
Where
So then the conversation became, oh my God, this toxic man is hitting people and slapping people, and I felt unsafe, and I this, and so it's like that's because they didn't know him as. Now I'm not saying that Will Smith is a violent person. That's not what I'm saying. But it's he never got angry. He never got sad. He doesn't have his own problems. He doesn't, you know what I mean? Like it's those things that people don't know. So when you're on a smaller scale, when you're in these environments where you're just like the guy, you're just, you know, you work in IT or whatever, you just do your job or whatever. People are more uncomfortable around that type of person because there's also the racial factor, but then there's also because how many times you worked at a job and you don't really want to like go out with them because you know people at your job be corny. So,
like after hours, no, I don't want to go out and grab drinks. Or
you're like, I've been here for 10 hours already. I don't want to go into the axe throwing bar. I really want to go hang out with my friends. I'm not even sure I like all of y'all. I like maybe 2 of you, but I'm just not going to go and hang out with you. You know what I mean? So that type of thing is like a shock, right? And then what happens is you end up hearing about it later. Either you have to move your desk or you're not a good worker all of a sudden, or you get fired, or somebody feels uncomfortable around you at the office or whatever, right? And then it comes out to Monk, the dean is like, well, you made someone feel uncomfortable, so we're going to have to put you on paid leave for like a month or like however long it was.
Yeah, take some time off. I think when you talk about shock, like the scene when Issa starts doing the reading, where she's reading her book, like that was so uncomfortable for me. I don't know about y'all, but I was just like, what the F is going on? Like, is she serious right now? Like, and then I'm thinking it was like a period piece, and it was not at all. I was like, all right, well, maybe it's gonna tie in. And it was just like, oh, that's just so raw. That's so raw. I'm like, come on. So like, it hit it. I mean, when she started reading that hood ass shit with Tisharonda, if you got to know type thing, I'm like, really? Come on.
Oh, you be pregnant again?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God.
I have country family. Listen, my wife's family is country, my family's country. Nobody talks like that. Nobody. And it's just weird how that showed up. And of course, you got a room of thousands of people just soaking it in, eating it up.
White people.
Yep.
That was the point of the scene. The first lady that stood up was this old white woman.
Yeah, the standing O just led just like, I'm so sick of seeing that mess. Like, why are you standing? And what are you clapping for specifically?
But you see that all the time. You see that all the time, Jade. You see it all the time. You see it in stand-up comedy. You see it in stand-up comedy all the time.
I feel like that is if you're doing an audition and someone's like, can you make it a little bit more ethnic? Can you make it a little bit more? And I'm like, that's what that moment felt like, of having to spice it up, black it up for this audience. And then they're just like, oh, this is what I thought the Black experience was. Oh wow, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Like you said, it was uncomfortable. And I feel like that's what it feels like in real life when you are having to be performative for their expectations versus
this is the cooning shit that we thought y'all did, and now I get to see it in real life.
Danea, have you ever acted before or been involved in entertainment? As what did you do?
Act.
Are you still involved in acting, or?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can what was the worst audition racially for you? If you're comfortable in giving the experience.
I will describe the experience. I don't think I can say what it was, but it essentially was having to be in the description. Let's just say the description and the script and the language. The description, 20-something young Black female from this area. The script, never heard people talk like that in my life. And it was like the hoodest, ratchetest thing that I could think of. And I'm like, okay, like I know my group friend vibe, different how I grew up, the things that I've been able to do, whatever. But I know I grew up on the west side of Akron, and I don't know nobody who talked about that where I was growing up. And I'm like, this doesn't. So and I always have the issue of, okay, let me do this how I would do it versus just doing this how I think you want it. Because like, at least for me, I'm not comfortable doing it that way. So let me try to find a way to do it in my way that makes sense, because at least how I tend to look at characters, I'm not just going to do something stereotypical just because that's what it was called to be. Yeah. Everyone has different boundaries, different lines, but that's my line.
It sounds like you may have some integrity, and like it's a fine line as to, you know, how much step and fetch shit I'm gonna do. Like, you know, I've got to be authentic to myself to a certain extent while still creating these characters, essentially. Right. And that's got to be tough as an artist who, one, wants to be employed, but two, also wants to be employed on your terms. Yeah. But your job is also to act and create what's written in text. So, like, yeah. I understand from an artist that where I can empathize from an artist standpoint how, like, that's a rough situation and place to be when your mortgage or rent or car notes due and you need food. Here's the gig, but the ask is something that's just a little bit unbearable to just who you are. And I just can't imagine how many people have to deal with that every day.
And that's the thing of when it comes to whether or not this book per se, like even when he wasn't choosing to write these books, other people were. So other people were getting the deals. And there's always the mindset of like, oh no, just do what you have to do until you get to a position. And then you can start to create and do and curate and be picky. And that is a route. Some people are successful at that. And then other people look at it as like, but I want to be proud of my whole book of work. Like I want to be able to look back. I don't want to be 15 years into a career and somebody pulls out something I did year 2 and they're like, so this was you? This is what you were doing?
That's wild. Because I mean, like, two things pop up when you say that to mind. So the first thing is like Cat Williams calling people out, like, yo, you sold your soul, you know, you did all these backdoor deals and did this shucking and jiving to get where you are, to get the money that you wanted, right? And that's one way to kind of get there. And then hopefully you have enough influence and or backbone to pivot and do what's right, so to speak, right? And then the other hand, I look at like actors like Denzel. Like, we don't really have too many of these out-of-pocket experiences or coonish type films that he's participated in or work that he's done. And so, like, there is a storyline and a template that says you don't have to do this to be successful, but you also see Sexy Red's ass and look at her with all this money, and you're like, all right, well, here I am. It's a decision that has to be made.
Well, I think to that, and thanks for sharing your experience, Danea. We gotta be self-sufficient and independent at this point. And The reason I say that is just because no music executives going to the Howard University graduations and going, "Hey man, you just graduated with honors with a doctorate in robotics and AI. You need to come and tell your story." You know what I mean? So I think it's very specific. It's very specific of what type of message that they're trying to push to Black people, Black youth. Like it's very I feel like it's calculated. So it's one of those things where they tell you what you need to do to make it. It's not true. I mean, how many more documentaries are we going to come out with that's like, oh yeah, I was in Hollywood and someone did this to me? They just came up with a Nickelodeon documentary and they were like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, someone did this to me and this to me. And people are still trying to get into the business.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, well, you have to do what they want you to do. And then be on a documentary in 20 years and be like, oh, I was an alcoholic because.
But that's the whole trajectory of that narrative was pushed to people, especially, and I think it was more effective at a time when people did not have access to do their own work and send it out to the world. When you really did have to, like, because you didn't know or people didn't know, you had to link yourself with other people, managers, producers, production companies, then bigger conglomerates. And now we are seeing way more where people can do their own sketches, skits on social media. They might be able to figure out how to break the algorithm to where their content is being exposed. You have people who are able to film stuff with cheaper equipment, with a short film on an iPhone that went to a film festival. So there's way more avenues now that hopefully is pulling people out. But when you bring up even the Nickelodeon experience, then handful of years earlier, it was the casting couch. Mm-hmm. And what that unfolded with women and the Me Too movement, everything else that then trickled down of when someone is holding the keys to the kingdom so close and they're essentially offering success, but then wrapped in this is how you have to pay for it though. Yeah. In whatever capacity, hopefully we are moving into a space where people do not have, or we are exposing that, and the fact that there's options for people to not have to do that. Where before, like, the information was way more guarded.
Yeah.
Well, now especially with the strikes and stuff, like dismantling everything, the structure and tech moving into Hollywood and all that stuff, and how I think there's going to be an independent film revolution now because a lot of people are not working currently, and a lot of money's being lost, and people want to work. But with that, so we've established that Monk hates the system. So then he has to go to. Wait, so his mother, Leslie Uggams' character, has dementia, right? So she has dementia. So he has to go up to Boston to spend time with his mother. And that's kind of like what you're saying, Danea, how we kind of disconnect from like the main story. Because we spent the last half hour talking about the representation of Blackness and Monk's frustration, because that's important to us. That's like the big part. But then we kind of like unplug, and that was the story for like everybody else. Now it's down. He has to go see his mother. He's hanging out with the sister, which I like the family elements. I thought it was a nice balance. I thought it was a great balance between his professional life and his family life. His family was filled with a bunch of characters. I will say that there was some shocking revelations. So his father passed away, right? So his father's already dead, right?
Committed suicide.
Suicide. How did he commit suicide?
Blew his head off.
At the house that they.
At the house in Martha's Vineyard.
No, in Boston.
At the house.
Yeah. Because that's where remember when they meet Erica Alexander's character, she's like, yeah, I heard some crazy man shot himself or blew his head off in the house. And it's just like, oh, I'm such an F up. I completely didn't even think, but like that was his dad.
Okay, so that was on Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, so that was the house of Martha's Vineyard. He killed himself. So his brother has dementia in Boston, and his sister is Tracy Ellis Ross, and then his brother, who is estranged, who is aloof, estranged, somewhat angry, aloof at the beginning. You're like, yo, what's his brother's name? His brother's name is I want to just call him Sterling because that's how we be called.
It's
His real name.
Clifford.
Clifford.
Clifford Ellis.
Cliff, yeah.
That's such a name. That's such a great name. So we got Monk Clifford, and then the sister, Tracy Ellis Ross's character. Don't tell
Lisa.
me her name is
Lisa.
Lisa. Okay, I was hoping it wasn't like Daisy or some shit. I liked I really did like the dynamics between the family. I liked and again, this is kind of, I understand Monk's estrangement to his family in a sense, just because I do think that Monk is a snob. I think if you're an artist, like, you do get caught up in your career when you're like an actor and stuff like that, when you're an actor and stuff, but when you're also like a creator and a writer and stuff like that too, that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. Years go by when you don't really connect with people, you know? So that aspect was like very, I think, accurate of how he's down in New York doing his thing. Really kind of caught in his own world, trying to figure out what the next big thing is. And then he just kind of like forgets about his family. And his sister's the one that reminds him of that. Like, as soon as he gets there, you know, she's like, I have your book. It's amazing. It's like
really, which one?
But then she's like, it's great. It's like holding up my coffee table. It's like
perfect height for that little leg. No, it's good, and those subtleties made it work for me. Like, what I thought was really cool was that, like, they were like a real family. Like, everybody's not all bells and whistles. Like, there's these backstories in terms of childhood and who was treated better and not better, or who was the favorite kid. And then, like, life decisions as you grow older and you see things, and they spread apart and start having different roles and responsibilities. And there's usually always one that gets stuck taking care of the parent, where they're the person that gets called on for finances and for care and the follow-up and the check-ins and all these things. So I thought, from a representation standpoint, that was well done. And you had like a nice, diverse kind of, all right, even though they're all doctors, which I thought was kind of cool, they all kind of had their nuance. You had the man, didn't Cliff marry a white woman? They got divorced because he was gay and got caught. And then, like, he just coked out and living his best life while doing plastic surgery, rolling around with drugs. It was just like, I just gave him a little something for him to take a nap and rest. You want something?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he's a very nip tuck type of guy. Cliff.
Yeah.
Like, he's very much, because plastic surgeons are like the rock stars of doctors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're the ones that people assume are around the beautiful ladies and at the parties and with all the money and all that stuff. So that fit perfectly for him being a plastic surgeon. And then
I felt like
too, and he only messes with. Oh, go ahead, Danea. Sorry.
I was gonna say, and I felt like Sterling K. Brown did a great job with that role, because the nuances to be like a plastic surgeon who's also gay, who also is married to a white woman, who also has this feeling issue with his family acceptance, mainly his mom, dealing with that, but then the sibling dynamic, I thought he played the heck out of that role. It was good.
Yeah. The acting across the board was great. Like, there were believable characters who were locked in the entire time. I mean, like they definitely like are exceptional at their craft, and I just don't want that to get lost, and I don't know that it will, especially with all the recognition they had from like the Oscars and such. But like they can act like real good, like real good, and they were selling it and completely locked in. And seeing Erica Alexander on screen again, that was a moment for me. Like I always liked Max. She was crazy. She was loud on Living Single. So to just see her there in a mature acting capacity, I think like we saw another element of her. And even as a public defender and her story and how they introduced her character, like I just thought that was beautifully done. I think Keenan, you had mentioned about introduction of characters and how it's so important, and good writers do that on an episode or two ago. And like the whole dropping the tomatoes, the running across the street, the awkward dialogue, and then them starting a date and her shooting her shot. I thought that was dope too. It's just like, yo, this ain't really a thing, but like you trying to grab drinks or something while you here. Like I was like, all right, see, like that's a respectful way for Black women or women in general. Just shoot your shot without like being thirsty or like literally tossing the box or whatever. Like it was good. Like I don't know. I found myself smiling and laughing and like wow throughout the movie often. And I like having emotions throughout a movie versus just watching.
Can we say, oh, go ahead.
I would say the dialogue felt very real and organic. It wasn't, because a lot of times you can't see a movie where it's like, you want us to root for this couple, but like you haven't laid the words there for it to make sense. And that whole scenario of having this like kind of memorable moment where she like speaks out of the side of her mouth, and that even though it was a wild thing for her to say and how it affected him, that is a moment where it makes sense of, I get why they continue their conversation. I get why they continue to date. And I think that dialogue, that type of dialogue was throughout between him and Tracy, between, you know, the mom, even in her dementia, you know, having a grandparent with dementia, that kind of in and out where they can say like that was on par for what that experience is.
I would like to officially say on this podcast that I think American Fiction takes place in the same universe as Living Single. American Fiction takes place in the Living Single universe, and Matt screwed up. Matt screwed up. Left Brooklyn, and she went out on Martha's Vineyard. Her and Kyle, obviously, it didn't work out. It didn't work out for her and Kyle. They do have a kid. She has a kid somewhere, but she's off at college. She's grown. Like she's not. It's time for her to move on.
You should write the prequel.
No, I think I first of all, I'm glad that Monk was with a Black woman in the movie. For selfish reasons. So when people told me that American Fiction was about me, 100% true. After I saw the movie, I was like, yeah, you guys are right. There's always this assumption that people like Monk get with white women. Like people have told me that. They're like, oh, you guys, it's like, oh, you date white women or whatever. And it's like, no, that's actually not. And what's funny is everybody in my life that's like me or like Monk, it's all the same. I speak at your guys' friend group often, you know, of all the places. I'm like, look, I've hung out with like a bunch of professionals and stuff, all Black wives, all Black husbands, all, you know, like everything. It's this assumption that people have. And again, this is the conversation that we were talking about, the definition of Blackness, like at the beginning of the conversation, is like people have this assumption around, I don't necessarily want to say a certain type of Blackness because that's redundant, but like that's one of the reasons I enjoyed American Fiction so much, because it was Monk's white friends that annoyed him. You understand what I'm saying? Like
everybody annoyed him.
Yes, but he gave more grace to his black friends and family. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
However, Monk is still pretentious and ended up affecting his relationship with Erica, whose character's name is Caroline, rather. It got to a point where, because she was a fan of his books, right? And when you're dating and you're a creator and someone's a fan of your work, there's this unhealthy view that you have of yourself where it's like, I have this person.
Yeah.
They're a fan of me. They're a fan of my work. There's nothing I can do that's going to make, because it's a privilege for them to be with me. Out of all people, they have the privilege of dating the illustrious Monk.
That's
Jeffrey
crazy.
Lee.
That's nothing but ego. That's
It's
wild.
nothing but ego, right?
It's such ego.
So the entire time that she was, oh, your books are amazing. I love your books. Oh, this and that. Oh, I love jazz music. Oh, I love the museum. Everything was fine.
They were connected. They was grooving. They was dating, like they was locked in.
But as soon as she said, yo, like as soon as she was like, yo, you're actually wrong, he's like, you're a fucking so-and-so. Who the fuck you think? Right. You're not talking to me like that.
It was the moment that she let him know that she liked Issa Rae's book. And it was that moment of like, wait, you like my stuff. How in the world could you like her stuff? Because my stuff is above, above.
It was the book fuck when they were at the table and he saw the gag book that he wrote. It was just like, you read this? Like, why would you do that? Like, that's stupid. Like, why would you? And I thought you didn't read it. Like, how would you know so much or have such a big opinion?
She was like,
his fake book.
Right. But like, here's the thing that I thought the movie did an exceptional job of addressing without being in your face, like you need therapy, is address mental health. We saw it in many different instances, starting with mom, actually starting before then. So we had the dad committing suicide. We got mom in a non-faithful relationship, which he stayed in. Now mom has dementia, which ironically, like black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to get dementia or Alzheimer's than any other group. Women are significantly higher in general, plus being black just like increases the numbers crazy. Then we have Monk dealing with relationship and childhood issues, where that shows up in his relationship with Erica Alexander's character, Coraline. And we continuously see these segments around mental health and therapy and how it's playing out. You got Cliff, Sterling K. Brown's character, where like he didn't want to even have that conversation with his dad while he was still alive. Mom's rejecting the notion of him being gay. Like that whole scene where they were dancing, he was just like, I always knew you weren't a queer. And it's just like, and then he just walks out and flight again. Like there was so much of that mental health amongst black folks that were presented. And there were subtle nuances about how to navigate through it too. And like get out your own way, put the ego away, kind of work through all these things, and understanding that the stuff that happened in your past, until you come to grips with it and have an understanding about it, it's going to continuously show up time and time again, relationship after relationship, and it's going to be detrimental usually. So like I just really applaud that piece.
And it shows that we're much more alike than we are different. And again, rewinding back to the definition of blackness, because sometimes the definition is how much you've suffered determines how black you actually are. And it's like, well, look, these people are going crazy on Martha's Vineyard. You understand what I'm saying? Like the family.
The first world problems.
I mean, the father killed himself on Martha's Vineyard. You know what I mean?
It's not funny, but like for
this black couple is having a fight on Martha's Vineyard
over a book.
It might be a different type of argument, But it's people are having relationship problems, issues with the parents, with the mom, with the being estranged. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. Now, can we shift roles? Were you done your thought? I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
I'm good.
Can we pivot just a little bit? So there were a couple scenes that I thought were really cool, and I didn't know how to like label them. And I'm hoping that like the two of you with your movie backgrounds and writing can help me understand. So the first one I think that jumped out when he was writing the book, when Monk's writing the book, he's sitting in his office, and then the characters appear basically as he's writing. They show up in real life and act it out. Is there a word like what that's called? And if not, it's no big deal. But I really like that. I don't know whether it's cinematography or the direction or just writing or whatever, but like I enjoyed that element.
I
Go ahead.
I don't know if there is a proper term for it or not. I think, at least from my perspective, I thought it was a great display of how either when I read scripts or I'm developing a character, how it plays out. Because I see the picture in my head. Any of the times that if I've tried to do some writing for my own personal stuff, like I see this movie in my head, and that's what it like to me. That's what it looks like. So to see somebody kind of like take it, like, oh no, I'm going to take what this experience is and put it out here, because when I'm working on a character, like that's what I see. I see it as a movie, a scene, or like this situation playing out, and then I'm like, oh, okay, let me change it. Let me go back. And whether there's a term for that or not, I thought that was a great way to bring the audience in to what his experience is as a writer.
Yeah. That was really cool, and I thought it was funny, that whole scene where he's sitting down and he's like, when they come to life, he's like, you look at yourself, like, how your mama ain't tell you yet, like I'm your pappy type thing, like it was just wild. And then it reminded me of the scene where like Bernie Mac and Don't Be a Menace to South Central, where he just like the officer self-hatred. He's like, you ain't so tough now, little nigga. I hate you black bastards. You stink. I hate your black skin. I hate your black pants. I hate black pepper. I hate black keys on the piano. I hate my gums because they're black. I hate Whoopi Goldberg's lips. I hate the back of Forrest Whitaker's neck. All of that just reminded me when he was just like, look at your black nose, look at your black lips, look at your black eyes. I was just like, that, like, it almost felt like paying homage to that scene to a certain extent. But I don't know. I was just like, that. It immediately jumped out for me.
Well, I also think it was a missed opportunity too, because when the scene happened, I was like, oh shit, these are going to be like new characters that we're gonna be writing with the whole movie, because I would have loved to have the characters be the inner voices of Monk's dark side. And I thought that's what we were going to get. I thought we were going to get, as the book gained momentum, I thought we were going to get Monk was like, oh no, what's happening? And then like the camera pulls out and it's like Keith David and the other kid like behind them talking, yeah, nigga, look, we big time. Not like I thought that was going to happen like for the rest of the movie, that kind of like bring it all together.
And or have given us anything more about the book besides the little snippet that we had. We just knew that he was just effing around. So like, like I guess there could have been more. I wanted more?
It kind of felt, because the pacing of it kind of felt like it did feel like it was something. It was a missed opportunity that was left on the table. Like, as good as the movie was.
Yeah.
And again, I guess it's like hindsight, but go ahead.
I definitely could see in just other scenes where when he's on the phone with the publisher, he's trying to figure out like what to kind of say, if the characters have popped in and like then they're interjecting things from the book. When he meets with the person in the coffee shop, I definitely could see that adding to it. Yeah, I like missed opportunity. Now, yeah.
Because with that, it can represent it. This is what it could have done. It could have represented the inter turmoil that a lot of Black people have when it comes to identity.
Yeah, the duality and how that shows up.
Yeah, it could have been that representation of, well, maybe this is a physical manifestation of code switching.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it could have been, maybe instead of saying the word code switching in the movie, this could have just been like the physical representation of it, right? Or maybe Monk has a little bit more of a dark side, even though his character is kind of dark and sarcastic. But I mean, he has a little bit of like a dark, like when a guy walks in and his name is Jerry, but his real name is Jerome. You know, it's like, hey, I'm Jerry, but then Jerome is like this. You know, like it's like two different, it's like two different alter egos, right? So I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity that could have been. I mean, and plus you had Keith David, who is like, why would you waste Keith David?
Yeah.
You could have got some more out of him, right?
You have the voice of Goliath on your set, and you just go and Spawn, and you just gonna, and a dude from Armageddon, like you're just gonna just not. Maybe that's how much they could afford. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, you get a couple lines. Listen, I got a hot 10 lines for you for X dollar amount, and I'm out.
He's like, look, Keith David's like, look, I can only afford to be here.
I can shoot for one day. Whatever you can get in one day.
Not even a full day, a half a day.
Yeah,
I half a day in my schedule.
Yeah, I have to go work on the Gargoyles reboot, so I don't have time to actually be here. But
so
I'm doing you a favor because my mother's sister's friend is a close friend of your aunt. So
were any of you like impressed or have a reaction around the Stagger Lee name? That's his writing alias. I think there was an old song about it.
That might have been something. That might have been a joke that went over my head because when he wrote the name down, it was a huge laugh in my theater. But I was kind of like, I don't understand the joke. But
so it's got some backstory. We don't have to jump into it since none of us are super familiar. But I think there was a writer who wrote a book under an alias, and they had kind of paid reference to that. There was also a song called Stagger Lee. YouTube it, check it out, and like that, the lyrics to the song were about that. So tied together. You all can do that on your own time. For those who are watching, we won't take you into that, but check out Stagger Lee. One highlight I wanted to talk about real quickly was the whole Johnny Walker like metaphor when he was like, you know, I know you're a serious writer, you do high quality stuff, but think about Johnny Walker. He's like, I ain't really trying to drink right now. We're not drinking. He takes out the red bottle, the black bottle, and the blue bottle. And, you know, red bottle is probably $20, $50 for the black, and $250, $260 for the blue. It's just like they're all still Johnny Walker. But depending on who the consumer is, one may be more appropriate. And just because you do red doesn't mean you can't also do blue or vice versa. And like, I thought that was like, I was just waiting for my message type thing. But like, that means a lot because you can do many things. You don't have to be stuck into one typecast, so to speak. And that was a moment where, is that the answer? So we always keep going back and forth when it comes to like Blackness. Do we put out stuff that represents the culture? Do we put out stuff that's good? Do we put out something that's good and represents the culture? Are we pitching it to the consumer? Are we pitching it to those who can produce it? But saying like, hey, package it up and put whatever label you need to put on it to get your work out, period. And I thought that was a bar for a quick second.
And at the end of the day, Monk still got paid.
Facts.
Also
a lot.
That.
With the movie.
So at the end, Monk didn't stand on his principles. He didn't say, hey, I don't want to represent Black people this way. He took the money. He took the award, and he's doing rewrites on the adaptation of Fuck. So
I was gonna say, even how it finishes off, where the guy's like, "No, we need a. That's how it ends. Like, we need a better ending." He's still even like in the
love
end.
that.
All right, here's the the ending you want. Here you go.
So like, I love the fact that it played out in real, what he was writing or thinking showed up on screen. Like, I like that. Like, how is this going to end? We literally had, those times when you watch a film, you be like, yo, there could have been an alternative ending here. And we got him. You know what I mean? So like, I thought I enjoyed it. It was fun. And I thought that it reminded me, like, when they shot him at the end, I was just like, the first time I watched it, the second time, I'm like, yo, that's the scene from Malcolm X. Get your hand out my pocket. They shoot him, and he's like laying down at the podium. People go crazy. Like, I was just like, yo, that's got to be. I wish I could just talk to the writers and like, was that what you were trying to do? Like, I always want to know like what the intent was. Where were you trying to go? Like, did you put these little Easter eggs in here for people like me who are going to relate or whatever? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I always wonder, is that what they meant to do?
Well, let's try to
get them on here.
Get in touch with Cord. These guys are accessible. Let's try to get. They need to answer their phones though. Let's put it
if y'all just respond to the DMs or the text messages.
I've been trying to get Joel to do the podcast forever, and I actually saw him like a few weeks ago. Joel is the director of They Clone Tyrone.
Yeah,
and I saw he went to so just real quick, Joel Taylor, fantastic director. If you haven't seen it already, check out They Clone Tyrone. He went to the same college as my parents. He went to Tuskegee. So that's like our connection. So these guys just have to answer their phones. Answer your phone, Joel. The next time I give you
I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but that one little heart that's up there, that's his.
Wait, there's a heart.
Oh, you can't even see it. He liked it, I think.
Okay, well, maybe
somebody else with the similar name. But nonetheless, any other hot takes or takeaways from this film? Overall rating, like on a scale, 0 being completely trash, 10 being amazing. Like, I could watch this 5 more times. How you rating it, Danea?
I would say I would probably give it like a 8.7, 9.1. I definitely would watch it more than once. I feel like even the 2 times I watched it, I saw different things other times. Yeah. And I love movies that are conversation starters. Like, it's not just predictable. I didn't feel like I knew where this was going to go. So I definitely,
Yeah. What you got, Keenan?
What you got, Jade?
I was at the 8.5, 9, so we weren't that far off. I think a couple decimal points, but like I thought it was well done. I enjoyed great acting. I enjoy ensemble cast. I like witty, dark humor that makes you think and need to know a couple things to get the joke. And I thought it was culturally relevant, again, with the mental health component, with the family dynamic. I thought that it incorporated the LGBT community, where I thought it was just I thought it was a well-balanced movie, well-written, well acted. Yeah, I'm at a 9. I'll even take away the 8.5. I'm at a 9. I thought it was good. If it came on again and I was flicking through the channels, I'd probably stop and finish it out.
I'll give it an 8.7. It was a very relatable story. For if you're a Black creator in any type of industry where you're not the majority, it's going to be a movie that definitely hits home for you because of the rules that they make you play by. Also, great representation for bald Black men with glasses.
I thought your rating would be significantly higher based on it loosely being based on your life.
Black men with glasses and beards, great representation. Let's keep it going. Cast, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Acting, phenomenal. writing phenomenal. We didn't even talk about Lorraine and her husband.
That was a whole vibe too.
Lorraine and her
was
great representation because I'm just gonna be frank, a bigger woman, happy, voice of reason for the family because they were all busy being pretentious and first world problems. She was more grateful of her life, grateful where she was, grateful for her friendship, her relationship with the family. It was definitely a third party outside looking in, but someone who had been with them for many, many years, decades, I believe. And the fact that she got with the sheriff.
Yeah.
Another husky black man, great representation with a mustache as well. And they got married, and it was fantastic. And it wasn't a big deal. It was, this is what happens in real life. No type of feel good story. The only takeaways that I take that I will say is I think the Keith David and the other actors, the representation of the book could have been expanded.
Sure.
And I understand what they were doing with the ending in the sense of, well, this is just how you're going to have to make it, but maybe a happier ending rather than just say, well, just do it for the money. But at the same time, there's other creators out there that are bald with glasses that can write their own stuff and tell their own stories. So I give it 8.7. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out. I believe it might be playing in some theaters around the country. Very few, but it's on Amazon Prime. You can rent and buy it on Amazon Prime, but it will also be available on Amazon Prime because it's an Amazon MGM studio production, so it's going to be available probably within a couple months. Anything else we want to say before we close out the show?
We got to get to Danea. We usually like to take a quick segment. If there's anything that you want our audience to know about you, your brand, things to make you work, anything upcoming, any other projects, personal life you want to share, and be sure to let folks know where they can find you.
Well, they can find me by my handle, ms_Danea. I am coming fresh off of maternity leave, so hopefully I will be out and back working soon. So that's
congratulations on another baby number 2, healthy baby, which we love to see, and bounce back. I saw a picture of you and the husband out in all black. I'm like, look at him, just snap right back. Don't look tired, stressed, no nothing. Just out in these streets living it up. So congratulations to you. Love it. So I appreciate you here. We'll be back again in a little while, but it's American Fiction overall, good experience. Something we always tell you to do. If you like what you saw, have an opinion of that, be sure to check us out, like, share, comment, subscribe on the Kultur'd Podcast on Instagram. You can see it at Kultur'd Pod. Again, I'm Jade Brandon. You got my co-host, Keenan
Jerome Floyd. Instagram at Keenan J. Floyd. Yeah. Thank you for coming, Danea. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Of course. This was a great conversation. I loved it.
Man, many more to come. Thank you so much. You can follow me. I don't know. Do you want me to put me a little bigger on the...
Oh, so you know what? I can certainly do that. Matter of fact, let's make it even better.
Oh God. All right, let's do it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Kultur'd Podcast. Again, what my co-host Jade said, make sure you follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Kultur'd Pod. You can follow me on Instagram at Keenan J. Floyd. Also, if you're in the area of Washington, D.C., April 10th, 12th, and 14th, I will be participating in the DC Comedy Festival in Washington, D.C., so make sure you guys come check that out. I will put up those dates and times soon. Also, if you're in the West Hartford area, I will be headlining 2 shows at the Elbow Room on June 8th. Those tickets will be going up April 1st as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch y'all later.